What is going on, everybody? What is going on? The Catch fam, my name is John Dawson, and in today's video, we are hopping into another 2023 fantasy football mock draft. For the purpose of today's video, we've got an 8-team full PPR mock draft as requested that I draft from the 1.3. So today's format will be one quarterback, two running backs, two wide receivers, a tight end, one flex, five bench spots, a kicker, and defense. So, guys, it's mock draft season here at the channel. If you guys have any mock draft requests, regardless of format, 10 teams, 12 teams, 8 teams, half PPR, full PPR, super flex, 3 wide receivers, standard settings, whatever you guys need, let me know in the comments down below. I'm happy to get a video just like this one put together for you where I give you guys round by round roster construction advice. We also already have a ton of these videos out, so make sure you guys go check those out. You might find the exact settings that you're looking for. Plus, we have various live streams we've been running all off season long with a ton of different mock drafts. But make sure you guys are subscribed so I can get your video put together if you want one. And if not, go ahead and subscribe because it helps out. Hit the like button. And if you guys have any other comments pertaining to the upcoming fantasy season, please let me know down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Without further ado, let's not waste any more time. Let's hop into today's video. All right, like I said, for the purpose of today's video, we are drafting from the 1.3, which is kind of an awkward spot to start your draft. But I think ultimately you're probably going to see Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase off the board like we've seen today. I think you just go hero running back. Don't overthink it. Yeah, there's some good options at wide receiver here. Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp. You could go ahead and take Kelsey if you just want to get tight end out of the way, which in the 8-team format, positional advantage, definitely important. That could help. But I think you just go hero running back, and that's really the best way to start this draft. So Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, whoever you prefer. For me, it's either C-Mac or Bijan. I'll go ahead and take Christian McCaffrey off the board. But like I said, just take who you think is the best available running back, unless Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase fall out. Someone goes running back at the 1.2, then you have to take JJ or Chase at the 1.3. But you're probably not going to see JJ there. If anything, you might see Jamar Chase. Nonetheless, just don't overthink it. Go hero running back. Then we're going to go aggressive at wide receiver with our next two selections at the 2.6, 3.3. Get the best available wide receivers. And, in these 8-team formats, I always talk about positional advantage, whether it's quarterback or tight end. It's definitely very important. But I do think when you look at the quarterback position in these 8-team formats, if the right guy comes to you, whether it's Mahomes or Hurts or Allen, and they're at a screaming value, you just don't overthink it. You have to hit that draft button right away. But ultimately, if they don't come to you, just don't panic because you still kind of have this top tier, quarterback range. Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Burrow, Jackson, Fields, Herbert, Lawrence. That's 8 quarterbacks, okay? 8 quarterbacks who I think any of those guys can finish in the top 5, probably even the top 3, arguably, right? You're going to come out of your draft with one of those guys unless you have a league mate who is my target 2 quarterbacks, which sometimes does happen because it keeps that positional advantage away from another team. But ultimately, don't panic too much on quarterback. But if those guys fall to you at the right value, and you know your league better than mine, I mean, sometimes these 8-teamers quarterbacks go really early. Just make sure you're drafting those guys when they do fall to you. And if not, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, these guys are completely okay going into next year, excuse me. So don't panic too much at quarterback. We're here in the second round. Every quarterback's still available. But I think we stick to the game plan. We go with the best available wide receiver. And, there's a lot of good options here. A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I love all these players, but I'll go with A.J. Brown for the purpose of today's video. I don't mind Amon-Ra St. Brown there at all. I straight up don't. I love Amon-Ra coming in to this year. I think he's going to have a fantastic year, so he's still a good pick there. But now we're kind of moving to this next tier, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, Devonta Smith, T. Higgins. I will say, if you really like Amon-Ra, you could go Amon-Ra at the 2.6, and then you can still get a piece of that Eagles offense at the 3.3 and go Devonta Smith. But nonetheless, we're going to go with Jalen Waddle here and move right along. So I will say, we've got our wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 spots out of the way. Now we want to fill in that next flex spot, and I want to fill it in with a wide receiver. That's just how I play. Full PPR, give me as much wide receiver positional advantage as I can possibly get. But we're just going to strictly be keeping a strong eye on the quarterback position throughout this draft as well. So Mahomes has gone there at the 3.5. We're still just keeping an eye. I've done enough of these mocks that sometimes like Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen falls out towards the end of the fourth. We have to take them over a wide receiver if they're there. Those are really, to me, the three quarterbacks: Mahomes, Hurts, Allen, that you have to take if they fall to you. If you get past that, well, then you just kind of look for the value, between a Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence type player. But nonetheless, wide receiver probably our primary target at the 4.6. So who could be there? It's kind of hard to tell in these 18 formats because, things can shift so quickly. There's still a lot of really good running backs available. I mean, some of these are kind of controversial names like Jonathan Taylor, Ramondre Stevenson, Brees Hall, even Najee Harris. But at the end of the day, there's still good running backs. I mean, Travis Etienne, Jameer Gibbs are still on the board as well. When you go hero running back, in my mind, you probably don't want to take another running back until like the 6.6. Like we either knock out two more wide receivers, get someone that we're confident in on the bench, or we go wide receiver quarterback here, and then we start to stack up some of those running backs in the later rounds. I do think if you're going for positional advantage at quarterback and at wide receiver throughout your draft, which is kind of what I think you should do, and then you play the hero running back game, it's okay to sacrifice a little bit of positional advantage at the RB2 spot. Like you can still end up with some really good running backs later in your draft, whether it's Kenneth Walker or DeAndre Swift, Akers, James Conner, Rashad White, David Montgomery, Isaiah Pacheco, James Cook, Antonio Gibson. There's all kinds of names that still give us pretty good value later on in the draft. So we'll look at wide receiver here. I was kind of crossing my fingers that Calvin Ridley might fall, but I had a strong feeling he was not going to, so that's probably a good thing. So you can really go with the best available wide receiver in your mind right here. DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, maybe Amari Cooper, whoever it is you like. We'll go in and pick Deebo. I get that Deebo had a disappointing year last year, but this offense he's in is still incredibly consistent. When he was on the field last year and he was healthy for the most part, he still played very well throughout the season, still gave you double digits in almost every performance last year. I mean, just 3 performances when he was healthy, or excuse me, 4 performances where he did not give you double digits. And week 18 didn't even really count because the Niners weren't playing for much. But nonetheless, Deebo, I think, is going to bounce back, be okay. I don't love him as like a wide receiver 1 or 2, but as a flex option, especially with the potential for us to get a 4th wide receiver at 5.3 and get another option for that flex that we can kind of filter back and forth between. I think Deebo's okay here. I was kind of hoping Cooper would fall. It's okay that he didn't. I'll just take DJ Moore all day long here. Now, I love this wide receiver room. Whether you play in a 1 flex format, which is what we're practicing for today, or you play in a double flex format, I think this is a really good start, especially in full PPR formats, which a majority of you guys are playing in anyway. So we've got our hero running back. We've got Christian McCaffrey. We all know what he brings to the table. Now we've got Waddle and A.J. Brown as our primary wide receivers. Then in the flex, we have a ton of upside between the Niners offense and the Bears offense, probably taking a step forward. I think they will take a step forward this year. We have 2 really good wide receivers. Like I said, even if you're playing in a 1 flex league, it's okay to have 4 wide receivers through your first 5 rounds because now you've got a wide receiver on your bench who you have faith in. If anything happens to Deebo, Waddle, or Brown, whether it's a bye week, whether it's an injury, whether they just end up not being that good, which I think all these guys will be fine, you have another wide receiver that you have confidence in. And in these full PPR formats, that is beyond important. It's just the nature of fantasy now. Wide receivers hold the most value at the end of the day. So happy with this start. Little aggressive at wide receiver, but that's the other thing, right? We have positional advantage at wide receiver right now. Going up against teams in 8-team formats, you're going to face really good lineups on a weekly basis. And now we have that advantage at the wide receiver position. And ultimately, I don't think we've sacrificed too much at other positions as well. So moving along to the 6.6, 7.3. This is probably where I consider a quarterback, but the thing is, you just got to read the draft board throughout your drafts. Every draft is different. And right now, people are not really taking too many quarterbacks so far. 4 gone, but still 4 quarterbacks that I like. So I think we start to look for either the best available running back at 6.6, or we just take one of these stud quarterbacks. If you're worried about Burrow, he's probably going to fall behind Fields. In some of these drafts right now, he's falling behind Fields, Herbert, and T-Law. If you're worried about Burrow, just pass on him for now or draft him and consider drafting a second quarterback towards the end of your draft. I mean, there goes Herbert. So now we're getting kind of close. But there is one running back here for me that I just can't pass up. He might go here to team 4, and that's Kenneth Walker. I mean, I just think Walker, even with Zach Charbonnet there, is the perfect RB2. Yeah, and I figured he was going to go there because Tommy is a Seahawks fan. But I'm just saying, if Walker had fallen out there, he would have been a great pick. I mean, there are a lot of good wide receivers still available. I don't quite think it's necessary for us to keep drafting wide receivers right now. So let's take Justin Fields off the board. We get that Fields to DJ Moore stack. The interesting thing to note in this draft that we'll keep an eye on is where do these next three quarterbacks go? Or next two quarterbacks go, excuse me, Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence, because sometimes you'll get in a draft like this. And I don't think it's realistic to, actual drafts, but it does happen to mock drafts sometimes where, the last two teams that need a quarterback just keep waiting and they still get, Burrow or Lawrence or Burrow and Prescott, on one team and then Lawrence on the other team, whatever it may be. And they do it in like the last two rounds of the draft. But I think when it comes to your actual drafts, you probably won't see that happen. Your league mates are going to be wanting to secure the quarterback position. So I think taking one early here is completely fine. But let's take our RB2. Let's go Miles Sanders here. I mean, there's a lot of options. I like DeAndre Swift a lot in this range. Damian Pierce is okay. Madison's okay. You got Akers and Connor. There's all kinds of names, but I like Sanders. I think he's going to have a consistent year. Doesn't bring the most upside to the table necessarily, but as an RB2, I think he is completely fine. So, man, if we got Walker there, that would have been a smash for me. I think Walker is going to be just fine, even with Zach Charbonnet added to this offense, even with the Seahawks running back curses popping back up. He's got the groin injury, but Pete Carroll says he's going to be ready by week 1. So I believe Pete Carroll, but Walker would have been a steal there. I don't understand why he keeps falling so far in drafts. He's going to be just fine. Nonetheless, moving ahead, looking at the 8.6, 9.3. Okay, we've got 4 bench spots. We need to fill at least 2 of those with running backs, maybe 3 of them. And we need to get one more wide receiver. And obviously, we have to draft a tight end. So, we talked about positional advantage already. We talked about the quarterback position being important. I mean, the tight end position is still important, but when you look at the point differential between tight end 4 and like tight end 12 last year, it really wasn't that different. If you're not getting Kelsey, Andrews, or whoever you consider to be like the next top guys, whether it's Hawkinson and Kittle, Hawkinson and Goddard, some people have like Kyle Pitts, having a bounce back season. Some people have Darren Waller in there. Whoever it is, if you're not getting one of those guys, just hold off. And maybe you're getting one of those guys at a little bit of a later value. You just don't need to panic at tight end. Positional advantage, very important here. If you have the opportunity to draft Kelsey, Andrews, whoever you think could be tight end 3 or 4, go ahead and do it when you feel like it's right. But if not, you just hold off at the position because, we talked about how easy it is to come out of an 8-team format as long as most people draft one quarterback. With a stud quarterback, it's even easier with the tight end position. So just don't panic. Goddard should be available late, Waller, Ingram, and then like you can move into the next tier, which is not as good in the 8-team, but Fryermuth and Joku, even Cole Kmet, there are definitely going to be options. So like for me, in a lot of these 8-team formats, I'll keep emphasizing it. If you don't get Kelsey, Andrews at the right value, especially those 2 guys, just hold off. You can almost completely fade the tight end position. But for me, looking ahead to the 8.6, I mean, the player I prefer here is DeAndre Swift. Love him as an RB3. I mean, I considered Swift at the 7.3. Won't be necessarily surprised if he goes here, but he does come to us. So let's take Swift. I mean, I think you just have to look at the upside that he brings to the table within that Eagles offense. He's going to be the running back on this team who brings that pass catching upside. I think he's going to have a great year. The Eagles and the way they run their offense are going to be able to utilize him to his maximum ability. I mean, to, his ultimate talents, right? And, ultimately, when you look at what he was able to do in Detroit when he was healthy, of course it was impressive. I mean, that's the biggest knock is that Swift has had some, issues staying healthy. But I think when you look at this backfield with Gainwell being there, Penny being there, Boston Scott being there, Jalen Hurts being a mobile quarterback, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert lining up, it's just going to be hard for defenses to really game plan against a player like DeAndre Swift and take him out of games. And I think on top of that, it's going to help keep Swift healthy because there's so many other players utilized within this offense. So I'm fine with Swift. I'm not worried about him. With this next pick, it is kind of interesting. I'm going to go ahead and take a wide receiver and go Hollywood Brown because I think he's a good value here. I like him as a wide receiver 5. He's still the respective wide receiver 1 on that team, especially with D Hop gone now. And, he was playing just fine last year before he got hurt. Double digits every game last year before he got hurt. Him and Kyler have an incredible chemistry. I really like Hollywood Brown. I get, you could see a capped ceiling before Kyler comes back or whatever. But even then, I always say it, bad offenses still produce good fantasy players, especially in full PPR formats. Hollywood Brown as a wide receiver 5, nothing wrong with that. Now, we could have gone with our 4th running back right there. I don't mind that either. I mean, you got Kamara, Akers, Connor, Cook, White, Pacheco, all kinds of names here. I prefer Rashad White. I don't have a problem reaching for him, especially as an RB4 over any of those guys. And I won't be surprised if he's selected before we select again. There he goes at the 10.1. He's popular in the community that I draft with, and he's popular right now as a late round running back, anyways. But the guy I look for next is David Montgomery. I just think ultimately he's going to have a lot of opportunities to score touchdowns this year in an offense in Detroit that runs the football a lot. Don't get me wrong, I like Gibbs as much as the next guy. I think that Gibbs is the running back that brings upside to the table for the Lions, but I still think Monty is going to have a very productive year. But I would just note here, go ahead and take your RB4 unless there's a screaming value at wide receiver, which there are some good names, Evans, Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston, even Zay Flowers, Cortland Sutton. There are plenty of guys in this range that I like. I mean, even going into later ranges, which we could probably hold off for another round and land one of these guys, but you still got like Romeo Dobbs and Sky Moore and definitely some names that bring upside to the table that are perfectly fine as a wide receiver 6. But I think ultimately we go ahead and we take a running back here. And for me, it's Monty. I think Pacheco's okay as well. Cook, Javante, AJ Dillon, Gibson, Brian Robinson. Just go with whomever you have the most confidence in, excuse me. But for me, I like Monty the most in this range. I do really like Pacheco as an RB4, but Monty's the guy that I prefer right there. So, if you're worried about going hero running back, especially in an 18 format, don't be. This is what you could end up with in a hero running back build. We still got great RB2s throughout the year, and we're able to flex some stud wide receivers, and we still got a quarterback who finished as the QB7 last year and can easily finish as a top 5 quarterback this coming season. Don't panic if you go hero running back. It is a strategy that has definitely won a lot of leagues over the past year or two and ultimately continues to be a very good strategy. So, here at the 11.3, we could take one of those wide receivers I mentioned, but you know what? We talked about this throughout the video. A good value tight end fell to us. We got Dallas Goedert. We got the Eagles tight end 1 in the 11th round. No problem with that for me whatsoever. If Goddard stayed healthy last year and didn't get hurt mid-season in week 11, he easily would have finished as a top 5 tight end. And, part of that had to do with the Eagles being as good and as dominant as they were last year, but also a lot of it had to do with just Dallas Goedert being a good player and having good chemistry with Jalen Hurts. And he's still going to have all of that, even if naturally the Eagles have a little bit of regression going into the year. And I'm not saying they're going to be bad this year at all. I love the Eagles offense, but naturally, I mean, they were just so dominant last year. Maybe they have a little bit of regression. Ultimately, though, as our tight end 1 in the 11th round, that's an absolute steal. And I do want to mention, we talked about it earlier, right? Trevor Lawrence goes in the 11th round. There's only one team who needs a quarterback. Nobody's really going aggressive at quarterback, taking the second quarterback off the board. If you want to make that move, you could probably take T-Law there at the 11.3. And then you look at the board, there's one team with the tight end in front of us. They probably would take Goddard, I would say. But even after that, Ingram, Freiermuth, and Njoku, they're still good tight ends. I don't really think you need to take 2 quarterbacks. But I will say it takes positional advantage away from another team. And during your bye week, you'd still have an absolute stud. But I will say, you kind of want to come out of your draft with the best, depth with those skill position players in my mind. I just don't think it's necessary when your bye week comes up. You just throw someone else out there, pick them up off the waiver wire. You're probably going to pick up someone throughout the year anyways. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. But it is an option. Nonetheless, with this final pick at the 12.6, we could take another running back. Antonio Gibson, AJ Dillon, Brian Robinson. There's some good names, but ultimately, I probably prefer another wide receiver right here, whether it's Cortland Sutton or Romeo Dobbs. If you go Gibson here, I like Gibson a lot this year. I don't mind it. I think we have a really good wide receiver room, but in full PPR, whether you play one flex or two flex formats, I mean, I would say in two flex, I probably definitely go six wide receivers, but either way, I overall prefer six wide receivers, four running backs, a quarterback, and tight end. Just looking at most standard roster settings, that's what you can come out of your draft with. So for me, I'm just going to go best available wide receiver here. For me, believe it or not, the guys I like the most in this range, are Cortland Sutton and Romeo Dobbs. I think both of them are in just a really good position with their respective teams. They are kind of the wide receiver twos on their teams, but can ultimately be very productive as well. Yes, Sutton, I get it. Broncos were awful last year. They looked awful in week one of preseason. I've said this in like almost every video because he's like my late round wide receiver target next to Sky Moore and Romeo Dobbs. These are the kind of the guys I'm drafting in this range. But Sutton, every game he was healthy last year, except for four of them, gave you double digits in full PPR. Was the ceiling high? No. But if you do think this offense is going to improve with Sean Payton as a head coach, Sutton is worth the pick, and he still gives you that consistency at the end of the day. So to wrap things up, we're going to go in and select a kicker and defense. Don't overthink it. Even in an 8-team league, positional advantage important and all that, but don't reach for a kicker or defense. Don't be drafting Justin Tucker or the Cowboys defense before your final skill position player or second tight end or second quarterback, even whatever it is. Don't reach on kickers and defenses. We're going to take Daniel Carlson, who's your kicker one the last 2 years in fantasy, and then we'll just take the best available defense at 14.6. You guys, you can always stream defenses and kickers. We do care about both positions here at the channel. We do a must-start kicker and must-start defense video every week during the regular season. I don't know if any other channels even do that anymore, but we enjoy doing that. And at the end of the day, we'll still tell you, do not reach on either position. Nonetheless, there's a look at your roster. We'll wrap things up here with a defensive team selection. But Fields at quarterback, Goddard at tight end, C-Mac as our RB1. At that RB2 spot, Sanders, Swift, or Monty. We have a great selection of RB2s. Wide receiver 1's A.J. Brown. Wide receiver 2 is Waddle. Then in the flex spot, Debo or DJ Moore. We also have Hollywood Brown. Plus, we still have Swift and Monty as options, and Sutton on the bench as well. So, absolutely love this roster. I think we have a stud quarterback. We got a great value tight end who could finish in the top 5 if he's healthy. Probably would have last year if he was healthy. We have a ton of studly wide receivers, even going hero running back. We didn't draft our second running back till the 7th. In the 7th, 8th, and 10th round, we got great value on running backs. We have stud wide receivers on this team. This is exactly how I would want my roster to look at the end of the day. Our quarterback has the potential to finish his top 5. Our tight end has the potential to finish his top 5. We have an incredible RB1. We have plenty of great value RB2s, and we got a ton of stud wide receivers at the beginning of the draft, and we got good value wide receivers towards the end of the draft. A great kicker. And then we will wrap this up with a good enough defense as well. The Patriots are still on the board. They were your defense 1 last year. If they get selected, I just go with the Ravens right here. They were your defense 7 last year and have looked good in the preseason. But yeah, the Patriots are here. We literally got the kicker 1 and defense 1 from last year. It's a great finish to this draft. So if you guys enjoyed today's video, be sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out and hit the like button on the way out if you found this video helpful in any way. And like I said at the beginning of the video, if you guys have any mock draft requests, my schedule is filling up quickly for these mock draft videos. But as long as you're subscribed, I'm happy to put together a video just like this one where I give you round by round roster construction advice. Like I said, though, get your comments in now because my schedule is filling very, very quickly. And be sure to join our next live stream as well because we run mock drafts on a nightly basis here at the channel for the most part. On top of that, be sure to join our free Discord. Link is in the description down below. You guys can post your own mock drafts on there at any point. Real members of our community, competitive members of our community will come out and help you practice and mock draft with you much better than mock drafting with the computer or on Yahoo where people leave halfway through the draft or whatever it may be. We want to help you guys out and help you guys practice for the upcoming season. Other than that, if you guys have any other questions pertaining to the upcoming fantasy season, drop them down below. I'll get back to you when I can, and that'll wrap things up. So with that, I will say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening, and remember, you saw it here on The Catch.